Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Poland Daily Travel here at the Solidarity Center in Gdansk. I'm joined by Philip Goss. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And this is an interesting picture behind us. You know, there were the days of communist solidarity too, and friendship between Poland and Russia, symbolized by, well, a rather fervent embrace, you might say.
Yes, Leonid Brezhnev and Edward Garrick. Edvard Garrick, yes.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of showing that you love somebody.
It's certainly old school, let's just say.
Yeah.
And of course, this false altruism among the brotherhood of the socialist workers' countries, when really it was just more workers' exploitation in a different manner.
That's right.
It's I think disingenuous, and everyone sees it for what it is at this point.
Yeah, this kiss was actually in Warsaw, wasn't it?
At the Gdansk rail station, yes.
And you were telling me something about a British rock star.
Yes, that actually is the point where David Bowie disembarked from his train en route to Moscow and took a walk up through Żoliborz to Plac Wilsona.
Yeah, he had a break. He was on his way to, as you say, Moscow, and it's a long train journey. It's 1,000 miles from London to Warsaw, and then another 1,000 from Warsaw to Moscow, give or take a couple of kilometers. And at that time, it would have been a very exotic place to stop off. I think he wrote a song called Warsaw, or had a record.
You know, it's interesting to see the types of people
actually,
who
Joy
visited.
Division was called Warsaw.
Yes, the types of people who visited Warsaw before 1989, whether it was Bobby Kennedy, who came in the late 60s, or any of a variety of musical acts.
Rolling Stones.
Yes, among others. And it was interesting to see that despite the Iron Curtain, despite the imposed closed society that the Soviet Union imposed on not only Poland, but most of the other members of the Warsaw Pact, how indeed they were given access to some Western music, culture, media, personalities, what have you.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But anyway, in this particular section of the contrast is fascinating. This particular section of the museum is taking us back to communist times. So stay with us. We're going to take you with us and see what life was, a little bit more what life was like for these workers.
Yes.
Okay, see you in a minute. Well, this is a place that you probably dreamed about living in, isn't it?
Well, in one's nightmares, maybe.
Actually, you just remodeled an apartment that had a lot of stuff like this in it, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Yeah, a person had been living there, same person for many, many years, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this apartment, what date would you say this was?
Well, to me, this looks
70s?
A lot like the 70s, early 70s. In Poland, they call this type of design wczesny Garrick, meaning early during the Garrick administration.
Early Garrick, okay, like we would say colonial period or something in America, or 18th century or something.
And I think its hallmarks include a lot of things that were in the U.S. in the 50s, notably mid-century modern types of design influences. It's not bad, it's interesting. I like mid-century modern.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it has its own charms. At any rate, we see Mr. Garrick on television. He's following us around as we watch him. There was a movie recently about Garrick, wasn't there?
Indeed, excellent.
Yeah.
I highly recommend seeing it.
Yeah, and it's called Garrick, which keeps it easy, and talks about how he borrowed a lot of money for Poland to survive from the International Monetary
Fund.
Fund.
He put Poland irreparably into debt is a bit.
It's either a myth or it's not. You think it's a myth?
Bust that myth
Not a
by
myth.
saying that at the end of the day, Poland's debt-to-income ratio was basically 9.5%. And they compared that to many other Western countries, which had 20, 30, 40% debt
Or even
ratio.
now it's much worse.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to another room, and we'll see you on the other side. Okay, so we're continuing our tour, and Phil, this is really interesting. And in fact, Grażyna, the PR lady here, says this is one of the most important exhibits, which is, why don't you tell the people?
Well, this is a leather jacket that a 20-year-old man was wearing in 1970 during some of the protests, and he was shot by army, police, nobody really knows by whom. However, we see the bullet holes here, and also these people who died, their deaths served as very much a rallying cry and a motivation for the shipyard workers to unite and to rally against the authorities again in 1976 and again in 1980.
Yeah, Ludwig Piernicki was his name. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. See you on the other side. Hey Phil, what are you looking at?
Well, notice the crest here. This is a crest from the time of the Polish People's Republic,
right?
Meaning that it's a socialist era crest. What we do not see here is the crown on the eagle's head, which was replaced from the times before socialism in Poland, replaced in 1989. And ever since then, the Polish crest with the eagle has a crown on it.
Well, there you go. That's a very important little thing to know. Not so little, actually. Says a lot. Right, so this is a good place to end this segment. I would call this the area of the victims. And the wall behind us advertises macabrely the various people who were taken into custody for days or weeks or even months.
Yeah, and many times unrelated to what was happening in 1970. This behind us is the 1970, obviously not a complete list, but it shows a good cross-section of the types of people who were being arrested. Teenagers, random people on the streets. And for anyone who's been around to the various museums in
Some of them very young.
Yeah, even teenagers, like I said. School children. This reminds me quite a bit of the type of exhibit we would see at a concentration camp, where we see the mug shots of the prisoner intake, where the Nazis would take a photo with a number and so forth. Here we have photos of people with numbers, police rather than Nazis. But in any case, I think for those of us who've been around at the museums,
similar type of oppression.
A clear reference.
Similar type of oppression, and it just terrorizing the populace. And interesting because this time it's we were asking Grażyna, the PR lady, who's been very kind to us and helping us to get around and giving us the freedom to work as we want. She was saying the way they pulled this off was by having people from different sections of the country come to Gdansk. So people from the south of Poland would come to Gdansk so their relatives weren't involved. Yes. And these police were then told, these police who were come to put down the protests were told that it was being instigated by Germans, because that's a German, formerly German part of the
yes, especially country. Here where that type of propaganda used on police officers who were from, let's say, the mountain areas. Yeah. They say, oh, well, see, the Germans are trying to come back, that type of thing.
And they hated the German.
Of course.
So anything related to Germans, they say they're going to jump right in, because it's not so long after the war. It's 25 years.
Right. And so it was clearly fresh in everyone's memories. Anybody who's 30 years old remembered the war.
Yeah. This is a special thing. Here, this is a piece of the jacket of a fellow, his name, just to get it right, I'm reading here behind you, Adam Gautner.
Yes.
Yes? Tell us a little something
this,
about that.
again, he was a shipyard worker in Gdynia, just 18, 20 years old. And what we see here is a bullet hole in his jacket. He was killed.
He was killed by several machine gun bullets, if I read correctly.
Well, it's different.
He wasn't killed, he was shot. He survived.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he survived.
Oh, I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
But he was hit by 5 machine gun bullets. The jacket, it appears, wasn't it that it was donated by his family?
This jacket was donated with the
it's
caveat.
a fragment of the jacket.
Well, with the caveat that that it be displayed prominently. Yes.
Yeah, and it is, and it should be. Well, these individual stories, like these individual pictures we see behind us, tell the story of the kind of people and the kind of courage that they had to face what was a completely suppressive regime, not only with Polish authorities in charge, but the Russian, the Soviets behind them. So it's a good thing to remember, especially today with the challenges facing Europe. Thank you, Phil, for being with me and walking us through on this segment. Very helpful and informative, and we appreciate it. Thanks for watching Poland Daily Travel. We'll see you tomorrow night. And remember, we love you.